The airport terminal was louder than usual that morning. Rolling suitcases rattled across shiny floors. Flight announcements echoed non-stop. People rushed past each other, stressed, tired, late. No one expected trouble. No one expected violence. No one expected a uniformed security officer to suddenly grab a quiet man by the throat in the middle of the crowd. "Don't move," the officer shouted. Heads turned instantly. Phones lifted into the air. A group of passengers froze near the security line, watching in disbelief as Officer Briggs tightened his grip around the man's collar and neck. "Hey, what are you doing?" someone yelled. "Let him go." But the officer didn't listen. His face was red with anger. His jaw was clenched. His eyes burned with authority and arrogance. "You think you can ignore me?" he barked. "You think rules don't apply to you?" The man being held didn't fight back. He didn't shout. He didn't struggle. He didn't beg. He simply stood there, calm, steady, silent. It was Keanu Reeves. Dressed in a simple jacket, worn shoes, and a small backpack, he looked like any ordinary traveler. No security team. No assistants. No cameras. No special treatment. Just another passenger trying to catch a flight. But right now he was being treated like a criminal. "Officer, please," a woman whispered nearby. "This is too much." A young man pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is going viral," he muttered. Keanu slowly raised his hands, showing he wasn't resisting. "Sir," he said quietly, his voice steady, "there's no need for this." Those words only made the officer angrier. "Oh, now you want to talk?" Briggs snapped. "People like you always think you're special." The crowd felt something was wrong. Very wrong. Some passengers looked away, afraid. Others watched, helpless. A few whispered his name. "Is that Keanu Reeves? No way. Why is he being treated like that?" The tension in the air grew thicker by the second. Security cameras blinked overhead. Airport staff hesitated at a distance. Everyone sensed that this moment was about to change lives. Because what Officer Briggs didn't know was that the man in his grip was not just a famous actor. He was not just a quiet traveler. He was someone trained to stay calm under pressure. Someone who had faced danger far greater than this. Someone with a secret identity. And in just a few minutes, the truth would come out. And the whole airport would never forget it. Understand how everything reached this breaking point? You have to go back a few minutes earlier, before the shouting, before the cameras, before the crowd gathered. It had started like any normal morning at International Airport. The departure hall was packed. Businessmen rushed toward their gates with coffee in hand. Families argued softly over passports and tickets. Tourists stared up at giant screens, searching for their flight numbers. Everyone was tired. Everyone was impatient. And everyone just wanted to get where they were going. At the center of all this chaos stood Officer Briggs. Tall, broad-shouldered, perfectly pressed uniform. He had been working airport security for 8 years, and he made sure everyone knew it. Briggs walked through the checkpoint like a king through his kingdom. "Move faster," he barked at travelers. "Shoes off. Laptops out. Don't waste my time." Junior officers avoided his eyes. New recruits stayed silent. They had learned the hard way. Briggs didn't like being questioned. To him, authority meant control. And control meant fear. That morning he was already in a bad mood. His shift had started early. His supervisor had criticized him. And a passenger had filed a complaint against him the day before. He felt disrespected. And when Briggs felt disrespected, he looked for someone weaker to take it out on. That someone arrived 10 minutes later. Keanu Reeves entered the terminal quietly. No announcement. No entourage. No special treatment. He blended in perfectly. Wearing a faded jacket, dark jeans, and simple sneakers, he looked like a man who preferred comfort over attention. A small backpack hung over one shoulder. Inside it, a laptop, a notebook, and documents no one else would understand. He checked the departure board. Gate 47B. Flight to Berlin. On time. Good. Keanu took a deep breath and joined the security line. He stood patiently. Didn't push. Didn't complain. Didn't use his celebrity status to move ahead. A woman behind him whispered to her friend, "That looks like Keanu Reeves." "Yeah, but why is he alone?" Keanu pretended not to hear. He always preferred privacy. More than that, today he needed it. Because this trip wasn't about a movie. It wasn't about fame. It was about work, dangerous, invisible work. 4 months, intelligence agencies had been tracking a criminal network smuggling illegal tech through major airports. Sensitive equipment. Encrypted devices. Stolen data. And this airport was one of their main routes. Keanu was part of the operation. Agent K-17. Undercover. No badge. No protection. No backup in sight. His job was simple. Observe, collect evidence, and quietly follow a suspect boarding Flight 712. No one could know. Not even airport security. Especially not airport security. As he reached the front of the line, Briggs noticed him. Not because he recognized him, but because Keanu wasn't nervous. Most people fidgeted, checked their pockets, adjusted their bags. Keanu didn't. He stood relaxed, calm, focused. That calmness irritated Briggs. Step forward, Briggs snapped. Keanu obeyed. Bag on the belt. Keanu placed it down. Shoes off. Done. Arms up. Done. Everything perfect. Too perfect. Briggs narrowed his eyes. People who were too calm always made him suspicious. Where you headed? Briggs asked sharply. Berlin, Keanu replied. Purpose. Business. Briggs smirked. Sure it is. And that was when he decided. This man would be his target. Officer Briggs didn't like unanswered questions. He didn't like calm faces. And he definitely didn't like people who didn't seem afraid of him. Keanu Reeves stood in front of him, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady, waiting patiently for instructions. That calmness felt like disrespect to Briggs. Open your bag, Briggs ordered. Keanu blinked once. Of course, he replied quietly. He knelt down and unzipped his backpack. Inside were neatly folded clothes, a laptop, a notebook, and a few personal items. Nothing unusual. Nothing illegal. Nothing suspicious. But Briggs wasn't satisfied. He rummaged through the bag roughly, tossing items aside. Careful, Keanu said gently. There are sensitive documents in there. Briggs froze. Says who? Me, Keanu answered. The word sounded confident. Too confident. Briggs's jaw tightened. Oh, you think you're special now? I didn't say that, Keanu replied calmly. I'm just asking for respect. That word hit Briggs like an insult. Respect. He laughed bitterly. Respect is earned, he snapped. And people like you haven't earned anything. Nearby passengers started watching. A businessman slowed his steps. A young couple stopped walking. A group of tourists whispered nervously. Something was happening. And everyone could feel it. Briggs pulled out Keanu's notebook and flipped through it. Most pages were filled with random symbols, codes, and numbers. To an untrained eye, it looked strange. To Briggs, it looked criminal. What is this? He demanded. Personal notes, Keanu replied. Looks like spy stuff to me, Briggs scoffed. Keanu's eyes narrowed for just a second. Then they softened again. Sir, I suggest you put that back. Briggs stepped closer. Or what? The question was a challenge. A test. A way to prove dominance. Keanu didn't answer. He simply held Briggs's gaze. Silent. Unmoving. That silence drove Briggs crazy. You think you're better than everyone here? Briggs shouted. No, Keanu said softly. I think everyone deserves dignity. That was enough. Briggs shoved Keanu's chest. Don't lecture me. Keanu stumbled back half a step, then regained his balance. Gasps filled the air. Hey, that's unnecessary, someone yelled. Leave him alone. A junior officer approached carefully. Sir, maybe we should. Stay out of this. Briggs barked. He grabbed Keanu's collar. Art. Now answer me. Briggs roared. Who are you really? Keanu felt the pressure tighten. His training kicked in. Slow breathing. Steady heartbeat. No sudden moves. Let go, Keanu said quietly. Briggs tightened his grip. Make me. Phones were everywhere now. Red recording lights blinked. Social media was already watching. A mother pulled her child behind her. An elderly man shook his head. This is wrong, he murmured. Keanu raised his hand slowly. I'm cooperating, he said. There's no need for force. But Briggs had crossed a line. He grabbed Keanu by the throat. Not fully choking. Not yet. But enough to show power. Enough to humiliate. Enough to scare. The terminal fell silent. Even the announcement seemed to stop. Everyone stared. No one breathed. Keanu looked straight into Briggs's eyes. And for the first time, Briggs saw something unexpected. Not fear. Not anger. Not panic. He saw control. Experience. Warning. A quiet message that said, you have no idea who you're touching. And in that moment, Briggs realized he might have made the worst mistake of his life. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. No footsteps. No conversations. No announcements. Only silence. Officer Briggs's hand was still gripping Keanu's throat. Not tightly enough to choke him, but tightly enough to send a clear message. Power. Control. Humiliation. Keanu stood perfectly still. His breathing was slow, measured, trained. Inside his mind, years of discipline took over. Don't escalate. Don't expose yourself. Wait. Around them, dozens of people watched in horror. A teenage girl whispered, "Oh my God, is he hurting him?" Her friend nodded, unable to speak. A businessman clenched his fists. "This is abuse," he muttered. A woman near the wall started crying softly. Someone shouted, "Let him go." But no one moved closer. Fear kept them frozen. Briggs enjoyed that fear. He felt powerful, important, untouchable. "You think you're tough?" he sneered. "You think you can ignore me and walk away?" Keanu swallowed slowly. "Sir," he said calmly, "you're being recorded." Briggs glanced around. Dozens of phones were pointed at him. Red lights blinking. Screens glowing. But instead of backing down, his anger grew. "Turn those off," he shouted. "This is official business." No one listened. A junior officer tried again. "Sir, please, this is getting out of control." Briggs shoved him aside. "I said stay back." The crowd gasped. Now even his own team looked afraid. Keanu gently placed one hand on Briggs's wrist. Not to fight. Not to attack. Just enough to signal. "Enough. Please," Keanu said quietly. "Let's handle this properly." That calm voice cut through the chaos. Somehow it made the situation feel heavier. More serious. More dangerous. Because calm in a storm meant confidence. A middle-aged woman stepped forward. "I know him," she said nervously. "That's Keanu Reeves. He's not dangerous." Briggs laughed harshly. "So what? You think being famous makes him innocent?" "He's always kind," she insisted. "He helps people. He—" "Shut up." Briggs snapped. Security supervisors were watching now from a distance. Talking into radios. Calling for backup. Calling for higher authority. But none had arrived yet. And until they did, Briggs was still in control. Keanu's thoughts were racing. The suspect he was tracking could already be boarding. The mission was slipping away. Every second mattered. But he couldn't reveal himself. Not yet. Not here. Not like this. He closed his eyes for half a second. Focused. Then opened them again. "Officer," he said firmly now, "your actions will have consequences." That sentence hit differently. Not emotional. Not threatening. Just factual. Briggs hesitated. Just for a second. Doubt flickered in his eyes. What did you say?" "I said," Keanu repeated, "this will follow you forever." The crowd murmured. Even the air felt tense. Suddenly, a voice echoed from behind. "Officer Briggs. Stand down." A woman in a dark suit walked forward. Confident. Focused. Purposeful. She moved like someone who belonged in dangerous places. Two men followed her. Earpieces. Straight posture. Alert eyes. Not airport staff. Not police. Something else. Briggs frowned. "And who are you supposed to be?" She held up her badge. "Federal Intelligence Agency." The words hit like thunder. People gasped. Phones zoomed in. Whispers spread instantly. Did she say intelligence? Is this real? Briggs's face drained of color. That can't be. "Release him," she ordered calmly. "Now." Briggs's hand loosened. Not completely, but enough. "Why?" he stammered. "Because," she said, stepping closer. "You are interfering with a classified operation." Keanu slowly exhaled. Relief, but also regret. The cover was breaking. The mission was compromised. Still, his safety came first. The woman turned to him. "Agent K-17, she said quietly. "We're taking over." The crowd froze. "Agent? K-17? Briggs's knees trembled. "Agent?" he whispered. Keanu looked at him, not with anger. Not with pride. With disappointment. "Yes," Keanu said softly. And in that moment, the entire airport realized. They had just witnessed history. The moment Keanu spoke the word yes, the entire terminal seemed to lose its breath. For a few seconds no one moved. No one spoke. No one even blinked. "Agent?" a young man whispered. "Did he say agent?" "Like, a real one?" someone replied. Phones zoomed in closer. Social media feeds were exploding. No one cared about flights anymore. Everyone cared about this. Officer Briggs stood frozen. His hand dropped from Keanu's throat as if it had suddenly become too heavy to lift. His lips trembled. This is a joke, he muttered. Keanu didn't respond. He simply adjusted his jacket and stepped half a pace back, reclaiming his space. The woman in the dark suit turned to Briggs. "Officer Briggs," she said firmly, "you are now under investigation for abuse of authority, assault and interference with a federal operation." Each word landed like a hammer. Abuse, assault, interference. Briggs shook his head wildly. "I didn't know. I swear. No one told me." "No one needed to," she replied coldly. "Your job was to protect passengers, not terrorize them." Two airport supervisors rushed forward. "Ma'am, we had no idea." "Then you failed as well," she cut in. This situation escalated for 20 minutes without intervention. They lowered their eyes. Keanu finally spoke again. "Let's focus," he said calmly. "The suspect. Gate 47B. He'll try to board in 5 minutes." The woman nodded. "Teams Alpha and Bravo move." Her agents spoke into their radios instantly. Within seconds, men and women in plain clothes began spreading through the terminal. To the crowd, it looked like random passengers suddenly waking up. But in reality, it was a hidden network activating. Briggs watched in shock. "All this time," he whispered. "You were watching?" Keanu glanced at him. "Yes," he replied simply. Nearby, a college student whispered to his friend. "He's like John Wick in real life." Another replied, "Bro, this is crazier." But this wasn't a movie. This was real. A large screen near the gate suddenly switched. Security footage appeared. A man in a gray hoodie was shown slipping a small metal case into another traveler's bag. "Target confirmed," an agent announced. "Package transferred." Keanu's jaw tightened. "That device contains stolen encryption chips," he explained quietly. "If it leaves the country, dozens of systems become vulnerable." A middle-aged businessman nearby gasped. "Like, government systems? Power grids? Airports? Hospitals?" Keanu replied. The crowd went silent again. They finally understood. This wasn't about ego. This wasn't about fame. This was about safety. Lives. Countries. In the distance, raised voices echoed. "Sir, step aside." "No. I didn't do anything." Running footsteps followed. Passengers screamed and moved aside as agents sprinted past. Moments later, two men dragged the suspect back into view. The gray hoodie was gone. His face was pale. Sweat covered his forehead. "It wasn't me," he cried. Keanu approached him slowly. "You made 3 mistakes," he said calmly. "First, you used the same courier twice. Second, you trusted airport corruption. Third, you underestimated patience." The suspect looked up at him in disbelief. You were just standing there." Keanu nodded. "That was the point." Handcuffs clicked shut. The crowd erupted into applause. Not loud. Not wild. Respectful. Grateful. Some people wiped tears from their eyes. They had come to catch flights. Instead, they had witnessed courage. Briggs sank onto a nearby bench. His world had collapsed. An internal affairs officer approached him. "Officer Briggs, you are suspended pending investigation." I ruined everything," he whispered. Keanu walked over to him. Everyone watched. Was he angry? Was he proud? Was he going to lecture him? Instead, Keanu spoke softly. "You didn't ruin everything today," he said. "You showed everyone what happens when power loses empathy." Briggs looked up, ashamed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Keanu nodded once. "I hope you mean it." The woman in the dark suit turned to Keanu. "Operation secured. No data leaked." "Good," he replied. She smiled faintly. "Nice work, K-17. Keanu glanced around at the crowd. So many faces. So many phones. So many stories being uploaded. His secret life was no longer secret. But some truths were meant to be seen. And today, the truth had won. The terminal slowly began to breathe again. For the first time in nearly an hour, people remembered they had flights to catch, bags to carry, lives to return to. Announcements resumed. Flight 712 to Berlin is now boarding. Rolling suitcases started moving. Parents called their children closer. But nothing felt normal anymore. Everyone had been changed by what they had seen. Near the security area, a temporary command center had been set up. Agents spoke quietly into headsets. Supervisors filled out reports. Security footage was being downloaded. Everything was being documented. Nothing would be forgotten. Keanu stood near a glass wall, looking out at the runway. Planes taxied slowly under the morning sun. To most people it was a beautiful sight. To him it was a reminder. Another mission completed. Another danger prevented. Another secret life continuing in silence. The woman in the dark suit approached him. "You handled that well," she said. "You kept control when most people would have lost it." Keanu smiled faintly. "Losing control never solves anything." She nodded. "Still, your cover is blown. Social media is already calling you the real-life John Wick agent." He sighed softly. "I was hoping to avoid that." "We'll manage it," she replied. "Damage control is working." Nearby, paramedics examined Keanu's neck. Light red marks were visible. "Any pain?" one asked. "Nothing serious," he replied. "Still, you'll need a report," she insisted. Across the terminal, Officer Briggs sat alone. No badge. No authority. No confidence. Just a broken man staring at the floor. Two investigators questioned him quietly. His voice was low, shaky. I never meant to hurt anyone," he said. "But I let anger control me." No one answered. Because excuses couldn't erase what had happened. A young airport employee, the same one who had tried to calm things earlier, approached Keanu hesitantly. "Sir, I just wanted to say, thank you," he said, "for standing up without violence." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for speaking up," he replied. "That takes courage." The employee smiled proudly. Not because he had met a celebrity. Because he had been seen. News crews were now gathering outside the terminal. Cameras. Microphones. Live broadcasts. Breaking news. Undercover agent revealed at airport. Security tried to hold them back. But the story was already everywhere. Keanu watched from inside. "This will make things complicated," he said quietly. "Yes," the woman replied. "But it will also make people think." She handed him a phone. On the screen were thousands of messages. Strangers from around the world. "Thank you for staying calm. You showed real strength. This restored my faith." He scrolled slowly. Surprised. Humbled. "I didn't do it for praise," he said. "I know," she replied. "That's why it matters." A supervisor approached. "Sir, your flight has been rescheduled. Private transport is ready." Keanu nodded. As he walked through the terminal, people made space. Not out of fear. Out of respect. Some nodded. Some smiled. Some whispered prayers. He stopped near a little boy who was staring at him. "Are you a superhero?" the boy asked. Keanu crouched down. "No," he said gently. "Just someone who tries to do the right thing." The boy grinned. "I want to be like that." Keanu smiled back. "That's the best kind to be." Before leaving, he turned once more toward Briggs. The officer looked up. Their eyes met. Keanu didn't glare. Didn't judge. He nodded. A simple gesture. One human to another. A chance for redemption. Later that afternoon, in a quiet briefing room, the woman summarized the report. Network dismantled. 3 arrests. All devices recovered. No leaks. She looked at Keanu. "Because you stayed patient." He leaned back. "Patience is underrated." She laughed softly. "Rest for now. You've earned it." Outside, sunlight streamed through the windows. Planes rose into the sky. Life continued. But somewhere inside thousands of people, a lesson had been planted. That strength could be gentle. That authority must be responsible. That courage didn't need violence. And that sometimes, the greatest victories happen without a single punch. By the time evening arrived, the airport had returned to its normal rhythm. Flights departed. New passengers arrived. Shops reopened. Security lines moved steadily. To most people passing through, it was just another busy travel hub. But for those who had been there that morning, nothing would ever feel the same again. Videos of the incident had spread across the world. Millions of views in hours. Headlines flashed on screens. Undercover agent revealed after airport abuse. Keanu Reeves shows calm under pressure. Power, patience, and justice in one moment. People shared the clips not because of violence, but because of restraint. Because of dignity. Because of humanity. In homes, cafes, and offices across different countries, strangers watched the same scene. They saw a man being mistreated. They saw him refuse to hate. They saw him refuse to fight back. They saw him choose character over ego. And it touched something deep inside them. Keanu sat later that night in a quiet hotel room. The curtains were half open. City lights flickered outside. He held a cup of tea in his hands, staring into the steam. Not thinking about fame. Not thinking about praise. Thinking about choices. About how one moment could define a lifetime. He remembered Officer Briggs's face. The anger. The fear. The regret. He didn't feel hatred. He felt sadness. Sadness that someone had learned respect the hard way. He whispered softly to himself. Everyone is fighting a battle we can't see. Across town, Briggs sat alone in his small apartment. His uniform lay folded on a chair. Unused, probably forever. He replayed the scene again and again in his mind. The grip, the shouting, the shame. For the first time in years he cried. Not for losing his job, but for losing his values. For forgetting why he had joined security in the first place. To protect, not to dominate. Days later, an official report was released. New training programs were announced. Stricter oversight. Zero tolerance for profiling. Mandatory empathy workshops. The system had been forced to change. Not by riots. Not by destruction. But by one man's calm courage. At a school in another city, a teacher played the video for her class. After it ended, she asked, "What did you learn?" A little girl raised her hand. "He was strong without being mean." A boy said, "He didn't let anger control him." Another added, "The officer thought power meant hurting people. But it didn't." The teacher smiled. That was the real victory. Not headlines. Not applause. Understanding. Months later, the story was still remembered. Not as a scandal, but as a lesson. Keanu continued his work quietly. New missions. New risks. New responsibilities. But he never forgot that day. Whenever he felt tired. Whenever he felt frustrated. He remembered the faces in that terminal. And chose patience again. One afternoon he received a letter. No sender name. Just handwriting. Inside it read, "Mr. Reeves, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I'm sorry. You showed me what real strength looks like. I'm trying to become better. Thank you." It was signed. B. Keanu folded the letter carefully, placed it in his drawer, and smiled. Because forgiveness had found its way, and growth had begun. Dear viewer, this story isn't just about an airport. It's about you. It's about me. It's about every moment when we're tested. When we're angry. When we feel disrespected. When we want to react. In those moments, we have a choice. To become bitter. Or to become better. To spread hate. Or to spread understanding. To use power. Or to use compassion. Real strength isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't humiliate. It listens. It protects. It lifts others up. Remember this. You never know who someone truly is. You never know what they're carrying. So treat everyone with dignity. From the cleaner to the CEO. From the stranger to the celebrity. From the weakest to the strongest. Because respect is not based on status. It's based on humanity. If this story touched your heart, type respect in the comments. If you believe kindness is power, type strength. And if you promise to choose patience over anger, type amen. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every message. And I thank every soul who believes that humility is the greatest power of all. Folded hands.